Imagine walking into the most beautiful palace the world had ever seen. Golden halls glowing with candlelight, chandeliers sparkling like frozen fireworks, gowns dripping with jewels, and powdered faces smiling with elegance. But then, your nose wrinkles, because beneath the glittering surface, the air reeks of sweat, waste, and something far worse than rotten eggs. Welcome to Versailles in the 17th century, the home of queens, noble ladies, and some of the most powerful women in Europe. They wore silks that dazzled, jewels that blinded, and crowns that glittered. But behind the glamour, their private lives were shockingly dirty. Today, we're pulling back the velvet curtains and diving straight into the unsanitary secrets of royal women. These are not the fairy tales you've been told. These are the 5 most shocking hygiene habits of royal women. And trust me, you're not ready. When we think of elegance, we imagine perfumed baths, soft soaps, and ladies surrounded by rose petals. But in 17th century France, bathing was practically forbidden. Doctors of the time believed warm water was dangerous. They claimed it opened your pores and let in invisible diseases floating in the air. And the church added to the fear, warning that bathing encouraged vanity and sin. Together, medicine and religion convinced an entire culture that water was the enemy. Royal women rarely had private baths. Instead of washing properly, they wiped themselves with cloths dipped in alcohol, vinegar, or sometimes even saliva. The goal wasn't cleanliness, it was avoiding risk. Imagine silk gowns draped over skin that hadn't felt real soap in months. On the rare occasions they did bathe, it was a family affair, literally. The same tub of water was used for everyone, starting with the men. By the time a woman slipped in, the water was cold, murky, and floating with filth. The result? Palaces that looked magnificent but smelled like damp fabric, sour perfume, and human odor all mixed together. A strange contradiction. Women expected to be the very image of beauty, yet trapped in a culture that made true cleanliness almost impossible. And if you think skipping baths was bad, wait until you see where they went instead. Versailles was a masterpiece of architecture, a symbol of French power. But for all its glory, it had almost no proper toilets. That's right, thousands of nobles, servants, and visitors, and hardly a working bathroom in sight. Instead, people used chamber pots, little bowls tucked under beds, behind curtains, or even carried into social gatherings. And when the pot was full, someone, usually a servant, tossed it out the nearest window. If you were unlucky enough to be walking below, well, you received a royal surprise. It didn't stop there. Men often urinated in corners, stairways, or straight into the palace gardens. Visitors from abroad were horrified. Some described Versailles not as the center of elegance, but as a foul-smelling maze of waste. And for the women, imagine gliding down the halls in your heavy gown, not just lifting it to show off embroidery, but to avoid stepping in human excrement. By 1715, the smell was so unbearable that the king ordered the corridors cleaned once a week. Yes, once a week was considered progress. As for wiping, forget toilet paper, it didn't exist. People used cloth scraps, straw, leaves, or in desperate moments, their own hands. Washing afterward was rare. The palace may have looked magnificent, but the stench told the truth. And while their bodies were covered in perfume, their hair carried an even darker secret. In the royal courts of Europe, hair wasn't just hair, it was a symbol of power. And the bigger the hair, the better. Royal women wore wigs so enormous they were almost works of architecture, built with wireframes, stuffed with horsehair, padded with wool or cotton, then coated with thick layers of pomade made from animal fat. Once powdered and decorated, these wigs towered like sculptures, sometimes even topped with model ships or miniature gardens. But beauty came at a terrible price. The animal fat created a sticky, greasy home for lice. Without regular washing, infestations weren't just common, they were expected. Women used long, elegant silver tools called lice claws to scratch their heads without ruining their appearance. It wasn't unusual to see a lady pause during dinner, take a sip of wine, and casually scratch her scalp in front of everyone. And wigs weren't just disgusting, they were dangerous. Some weighed so much they caused constant neck pain. Others caught fire from nearby candles, yet refusing to wear one meant risking ridicule and loss of status. The irony? Poor women shaved their heads to avoid lice altogether. But for noble women, suffering was the price of fashion. And if their heads were crawling with parasites, their stomachs weren't safe either. Royal banquets were legendary, tables groaning with roasted meats, pastries, and sugared fruits. But behind the spectacle was a kitchen nightmare. The palace plumbing was so bad that raw sewage often leaked into the cooking areas. Meat spoiled quickly without refrigeration. Fruits and vegetables sat out for days. Rats and insects roamed freely. The result? Food poisoning was common, and parasites thrived. Royal men and women were frequently infected with intestinal worms, especially tapeworms. Even Louis XIV, the mighty Sun King, was said to have passed a worm nearly 6 inches long. And yet, noble women were expected to eat gracefully, smile politely, and act as if nothing was wrong, even when they battled cramps, nausea, or worse. Behind every elegant toast was the quiet misery of women forced to hide their pain. But the greatest suffering wasn't in the kitchens. It came in the most intimate moment of all, childbirth. For royal women, childbirth wasn't private, it was a performance. When a queen or noblewoman went into labor, the room filled with courtiers, priests, and nobles. Everyone wanted to witness the birth, not to help, but to watch. Why? To prevent scandal. People feared a stillborn baby, or worse, a girl, might be swapped for a healthy male heir. So the mother endured hours of pain under the eyes of an audience. Queen Marie Antoinette fainted after giving birth, overwhelmed by the heat and the crushing crowd in her chamber. She wasn't alone. Many women fainted, screamed, or suffered complications in front of spectators who treated it like a stage play. And the dangers were deadly. With no antibiotics, little medical knowledge, and unwashed tools, infection was common. Many women died in childbirth, and almost 1 in 3 children never survived beyond the age of 3. The reality? What should have been a private moment of love was turned into public agony. So there you have it, the 5 shocking hygiene habits of royal women. They avoided baths, lived among chamber pots, scratched lice from their wigs, dined on parasite-ridden banquets, and gave birth in front of an audience. It's easy to picture royal life as endless balls, glittering gowns, and priceless jewels. But behind the golden walls of Versailles, life was far from glamorous. Women who appeared flawless in public endured filth, discomfort, and dangers that would horrify us today. History often shows us the polished surface, but when we look closer, we find the mess hidden underneath. These queens and noblewomen weren't just icons of elegance. They were human beings trapped in a system that valued appearances over their dignity and health. So the next time you imagine royal life, remember, it wasn't just gilded halls and fairy tale crowns. It was dirty, dangerous, and shockingly human. Until next time, keep exploring the past. Because history isn't always beautiful. Sometimes it's downright filthy.